Good morning. Welcome to Sales Chatter, the logistics podcast where, hey, we try to help 10,000 reps hit a million GP. I'm your co host, Brian Mohammed, aka the Logistics Monk. And with me is the ravishing red burgundy, my man, Dan Deigan. What's going on this morning, brother?
Oh, buddy, dragging today, but it's okay. It's okay. We got to liven it up a bit.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Let's talk about that a little bit because like I'm the same way too. I was supposed to wake up at 5 o'clock this morning. I woke up at 6, and that 1 hour kind of threw me off because I'm doing 75 hard. So like I had to rush to go do my 45-minute workout, do my weigh-ins, and do read my books and stuff. Like even coming to here, I was like, oh my god, I'm cutting it, maybe like 10 minutes. But hey, May 1st, we're bringing on the good vibes, and the Leafs
Yep.
are in the second round. So you know what? Let's hit that
So is
intro.
Edmonton. So is
Who cares?
Edmonton,
Who
brother.
cares about Edmonton,
Oh
man?
no,
But yeah,
Canadian
we're
team. Come on,
Nah, man.
man.
Toronto all
Canadian
day,
team.
baby. Toronto all day.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
Yeah, like who's the team out there in Edmonton? Is it the Oilers?
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently, Connor McDavid is like one of the best like players, I think, right now. Like he's like I don't follow hockey too much, but I love following like playoffs. Playoffs is my thing.
Yeah, me too. You know, brother, same thing. Same thing. Playoff hockey is like I watched the Boston Florida game last night, and
Ooh.
Florida was 43 points behind Boston in the regular season. And Florida came back and won 3 straight and beat them in Game 7 last night in overtime. Just like the Bucks when we were talking about last week, right?
Yep. Well, even yesterday, Golden State, they were the 6th seed, and that experience of being NBA champions, they won Game 7 in Sacramento yesterday, and Steph Curry, my man, 50 points.
50
Actually,
points.
50 points, the highest scoring in any Game 7 period. And I think the press conference, they actually asked him a question because he's 36, so he's kind of on his way out of the league. But they asked this question, how do we stop Steph Curry? And then his reply was, hopefully we never find out. So shout
Oh,
out to the
that's what he asked, because all I heard was hopefully we never find out. He kind of did one of these and turned his head, and I
Yep.
was like, "What was the question? What was the question that they asked?" So I was wondering what it was. Okay, how do we stop Steph Curry? That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, this guy's a
Well,
beast, man. Shout out. You know, my claim to fame, Dan, is actually I guarded Steph Curry. I think it was in grade 4 or 5 on my junior basketball team because his dad, Dell, played for the Raptors. So he played for, I think it was Von Road, I think it was. So I tell everybody that I locked Steph Curry down, but no, he was definitely a star in the making at that point. But that's pretty cool to kind of see that, you know, Steph Curry is leading. And the one thing that we've kind of learned too, like you're talking about Florida, right? So I think let's talk a little sports and then we'll get into our topic. But so the Leafs have the Panthers, and then hopefully
yes.
they have the Hurricanes next. But I think their record against the Panthers have been pretty good this season. So we got a chance.
Yeah.
Do we have a chance, Dan?
I, you know what? I'd like to say yes, but here's the thing, right? Is like, in all fairness, they'll be shit the bed a lot.
Mm,
Sorry, excuse my language, but they do. You know, like if you look at the Tampa series in whole, the Leafs were outplayed 10
yeah.
to 1, but they
Yep.
still pulled it off. And so there's kind of two things going. So the one is they made it past the first round, which is like the big curse, right? Like the Leafs, I think it's been 10 or 12 years they haven't made it past the
Not
first
even,
round.
man. It's been 2004, brother. There wasn't
Oh, really?
iPhones.
Okay.
iPhones weren't out there. They basically did a post of things that weren't around then. So like, there's so many things, like, you know, like obviously Uber, DoorDash, and all these things. But yeah, iPhones was a big one because iPhones actually came out in 2008.
Wow. Okay. I thought they would have been out longer than that. I guess it was BlackBerry before that, though. BlackBerry was the big one. But so you think about it. So they got past round 1, right? So there's this big, like, you know, hoorah rah. And then our nemesis, who typically most of the time took us out in round 1, Boston, just got put out, right?
Gone.
So now we've got Florida. So it's like this brand new kind of feeling that we have going into round 2. You know what? Normally I'd say, yeah, we got them, but you look at what Florida did to Boston. Like
Yeah.
it's NHL playoff hockey, man, and it's
Playoff
it's
hockey.
friggin' cool to watch. I mean, just like any playoff basketball, whatever, things happen in the playoffs that just kind of everybody go, what? How did that happen? Like how? Like not in a million years. Like whoever bet on Florida against Boston at the beginning made some serious coin.
Oh,
Like some serious
100%,
coin.
100%. Well, I feel like in both sports, NHL and NBA, it is the season of upsets, and we're seeing
Yes.
that experience. I know last night, Colorado, the defending champs, they got trumped by Seattle Kraken. I didn't even know that Seattle had a hockey team, but it's fun. It's fun to be engagement. I will say the one thing though is a funny story for you, Dan. So Friday, my wife and I we went out to a concert, but it was like a church thing. It was called Elevation Worship. They're actually a church based out in Charlotte, North Carolina. 15,000 people, Dan. 15,000 people in
Nice.
Scotiabank Arena praying. So I feel like we should take a little bit of credit for the Leafs winning on Saturday. You know, we
There
had
you go.
50,000 people in Toronto at Scotiabank Arena. Shout out to
They actually
Elevation Worship.
prayed for the Leafs.
Well, no, just praying in general. It was like
Oh.
it was like
Oh,
they have like
okay.
a band, so they did a concert, and then they had their pastor come on and like he gave like his word and his sermon and stuff. But it was one of the coolest experiences ever because obviously people kind of know like I'm not Christian, right? But I like to try new things with my wife. So if we see something that's kind of cool, we'll kind of go and do it. That's kind of our date nights, and it was a cool
Well, I
experience to
was
be a part
remember
of.
I sent you a text saying, "Are you at a concert?" Because you sent me a picture back when I sent you a picture of the sled you're going to ride, and then you sent me one back with this concert. I was like, "Dude, are you at a concert?"
Yeah, man, that's
Wow.
date night
Yeah.
for you, man. That's
Cool.
date. Shout out to everybody in the audience. You know, like if you doesn't matter how long you're married, how long you're dating, or whatever it is with somebody, make sure you keep up those date nights, my man, because those are definitely important. Definitely gotta go there. So, Dan, I want to talk today about today's topic. So we're talking about May 1st, and we'll get back into our random topics. But one thing that I've learned a lot from you is really preparing like that end of month, end of week, end of day kind of process. So I want you to kind of give people a little bit of insight and have a conversation on when a new month comes, because I know you're not the type of person to be like, oh, May 1st, I'm going to go at it. But at the end of the day, you do have to understand a new month is a new month. We're all starting
Mhm.
at zero today in terms of
Mhm.
shipments, all that stuff and things like that. So
Mhm.
what is a perspective for a newer rep kind of coming in here that they can kind of develop rather than them going through the days, but them to really kind of set themselves up for success? Like what should they be looking at?
Well, in this month in particular, you got to really understand what's coming up in the next couple of months. My opinion, right? Because a lot of the things you set up this month might only close in September. And the reason I say that is because right after that, you got June, July, August, the three biggest months for vacation, right? And one thing I did when I was a rep first coming in is I would just assume that deals that I was kind of just about to close this month or on the verge, kind of that 60%, I'd close them in June. And I would never usually close them until September. The odd one I would, but traffic managers go on vacation. Things change. The season's changing now again. So people are now starting, like everything for summer's in. People are now starting to look at fall. And they're actually starting to talk about where we're going to put the fall inventory. So just that's first thing to understand is that sometimes this is kind of that tricky 3-4 months of the year where I know I used to get very frustrated, and I'd love to hear what's happening with you lately, Ryan. But I used to get so frustrated thinking, man, I had that guy in the bag. Like what did I do wrong? And that was always the first one with me is like, was I too aggressive? Did I get commission breath all of a sudden? And then, the guy just, because you got to think, right? You go on vacation for at least a week before, maybe even 2-3 weeks before. They don't want to bring on a new supplier.
Yeah.
Like people don't really want to. They're like, okay, yeah, this guy's kind of a pain in the butt, but I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks. And if I bring somebody on, then I'm like, the 2 weeks before my vacation are stressful. And then what if something happens when I'm on vacation? So they would rather wait till they get back from vacation. But if you're talking 3 weeks before that, then vacation, that's a month out.
Yeah.
So if your perception is it's going to close next week and they're going on vacation in the next month to even, I'm going to go even so far as a month and a half.
Yep.
They might be very hesitant to bring you on. You might be a great fit. You might like each other. Conversations might be going well, but it's just, you know what? Like when you go on vacation, you want things to be relaxed. You leading up to your vacation and especially getting back from your vacation, because we all know we get back from vacation and it's like, oh my gosh, I got all this work piled up. Now imagine if you brought in a carrier that screwed up the whole time you were gone, you'd have double the work. Plus you're in the firing range and all that. So that's one thing just in the mindset to understand and maybe even have conversations with your prospects. You know, you have the conversation with, are you planning? Because if you're at that 60 to 80% before you close, you're having conversations about personal things, right? This isn't just a cold call.
Yep.
And have the conversation. Like, are you planning any vacation anytime soon? Oh, you are? Okay, you're going away in mid-June. So what would you think then? Because forgive me if I'm mistaken, but it seems like we're going down the right path here, and I'd love to start doing business with you. Do you think that we might be able to get in before you go on vacation, or is that something you want to look at after? And
Great
give them
question.
the option, because, you know, here's the thing. They might want you in, and they might not necessarily, I'm not going to say afraid, but maybe they're nervous,
Mhm.
but don't want to tell you they're nervous. Do you know what I mean? Like there's
Yep.
always that human emotion that we as salespeople should really dig into. And by you bringing it out and saying, "Hey, listen, if there's an elephant in the room, let me just grab a hold of that
Mhm.
sucker and throw him out," and not have to put you on the spot. So by giving them that, do you think before or would maybe after be better for you? And that would, I believe, will actually increase your chances of closing the business, get you better clout with the prospect, because you're understanding what they're going through and you're entering the conversation where where they're having it. Does that make sense, Ryan?
100%. And first and foremost, want to say shout out to Dan for using the word clout. Love that word. Those coolest words ever. I agree with everything you said there because I think, if you have that intelligent conversation with, you said something about like you can be like your own worst enemy, when you're kind of thinking,
Yeah.
is it me? Did I do something wrong? And I think like 99% of the times, Dan, that I thought that way, it wasn't that way at all. I just needed clarity. And that's what something that we
Yep.
preach all the time here is that you need clarity. So I think when you ask a customer, hey, or prospect, hey, what's your it's like you're going to prom, right? So you're getting your outfit, you guys are getting ready to go to the dance, your whatever your truck or whatever is picking you up is a little bit late, but you're going to get to prom anyways. You know that end goal, you're going to have that customer flag, but it's just, it's on their terms. And I like what you said
Yeah.
about vacation because we're seeing a lot, myself personally, I'm seeing a lot of RFPs. Normally for me, before, I would say maybe before last year, my RFP season was September to like December, and then you go launch June 1. January 1. But I'm seeing a lot of RFPs now where we kind of go, we're doing it now to launch June 1st. And I
Yeah.
know Jeff kind of talked about that, kind of doing quarterly or like biannually. But like you're saying that thing, if you're 60%, 60 to 80% of being in that customer conversation, you don't need to be talking about business because they already know that you're top of mind. I would say though, depending on your niche, if you are a niche person, like I think produce right now is starting up right now. For me personally, the produce customers that I have, Dan, I actually touch them every single day because they have
100%.
when it comes to like watermelons, something like that. It's like, okay, well, these guys have like 70 loads. I'm gonna get a piece of the pie. Same thing with like Christmas trees, seasonality, and things like that. But I
Hmm.
think it's really important when we're reflecting on our goals. I like to take Sundays. Sundays are my days to kind of like look at everything. I know that when we were hanging out a couple weeks ago, you have that 12-month calendar, and which is an amazing thing. I would love one day maybe could like turn the camera on that side to kind of show what that looks like. But I think that planning is so key because you're thinking long term, but you're kind of focused on the short term as well for there. So
Yeah.
I think it's like I like that question that you said, like ask the customer what your vacation kind of looks like, where they're kind of going. And that's another personal question too, right? Because hey, Dan,
Hmm.
if I was to call you and be like, hey, are you going on vacation? It's like, yeah, I'm going to Punta Cana. I was like, oh my God, I was in Punta Cana like last year. And then you kind of continue to build that customer relationship.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really cool thing to say.
Yeah. And and I love the fact on Sundays, that's the day I do everything. Sundays is the same thing. I sit down with my agenda. I look at my entire week. I look at my month. And the first thing I do is I say, okay, what is not absolutely necessary next week?
Mm,
Like, and the reason I say that is, you book a meeting with, um, I don't know, somebody a month ago, and now all of a sudden it's up this week. But you also look at this week and you're like, oh my God, I got 3 RFPs to get done. I got this to get done. I get this. As much as this was booked a month ago, it's kind of on that back burner.
yeah.
And so you move it, right? And Ryan, I believe this is what happens to us as salespeople, right? We go in and we book a meeting with a customer 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, and that customer, because all of our customers, traffic managers, logistics managers, VP of logistics, all these people, they're doing 3, 4 jobs. We
Yeah.
all know that by now, right? Like everyone you talk to is like, oh man, I got so much thrown on my shoulders. So what was important 2 weeks ago might not be important this week. And especially in their world, right? Like 4 containers didn't show up, or this got stuck, or there was a rollover of this, and there's their names all over the 6 o'clock news in Kentucky. Bringing on a carrier for Canada might not be in their priority list right now, right? Maybe next week. And that's what they do. They look at their agenda too, and they say, hey, listen, I got to cancel my meeting this week. And what do? We're like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? Right? But it's the same thing. You pull out your agenda and you look at your week and you say, what's really going to move the needle here? Is this meeting going to move the needle? And then obviously you do your work to determine, ask yourself your questions to determine if this is a good meeting to have this week, or if I replace it with something else and move this back a week or two, would it benefit me more in the future? Like for me, the beginning of May was always every single customer I would call and figure out their vacation schedule, their team's vacation schedule, and everything. The beginning of May. And some of them would be like, well, I don't really have it. And it's okay. I just want to make sure that if one of your team's on vacation, one of mine's not. And they'd be like, oh, wow, thank you. And I'm like, well, it's important because you're going to need extra coverage. And maybe one of my team members can be that extra coverage to call for deliveries appointments instead of, this person doing it or whatever. And it allowed me to have a really in-depth conversation with every customer. And that was the beginning of May. For probably the first 4 days in the beginning of May, that's all I did was just get a hold of them. I'd say, well, would you mind if it's possible, like if you have any idea, an inkling, can I either call the team or can I have my team call your team? Or are you, when's your kind of deadline for your team? Because a lot of people want summer vacation in by the beginning of May. A lot of companies, right? Because they have to plan accordingly. And that conversation was always gold, always. Because the customer was just like, wow, thank you so much. And I guarantee you'll be the only one asking that.
100%.
And even if you don't have a team, right? Like even if it's just you want to know when your customer's on vacation, because the last thing you want to do is book your vacation when your customer's on vacation, because something goes wrong. You are the face, right? Like they buy us, Ryan. All of your customers have bought you. They haven't bought the flag you fly. Yeah, that makes sense. The flag you fly, right? I was like, that's a lot of F's in there. But, they buy you. So if something goes wrong, they're on vacation. They would expect Ryan to be the one to stand up and say, hey, listen, get this right. And the conversation that you can have is absolutely amazing. But just understand, again, back to the original question, Sundays is the day of reflection. Sundays is the day where not only do you and I, Ryan, but a lot of people change their schedule. Do your best, and I'm so bad at it. I mean, I remember before I got sick, I had a $50,000 deal on the table, and this guy and I were communicating left, right, and center. It was like super communicating, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared. And literally, it was at the point where I sent the invoice, and he disappeared, and I was like, where is he? And you wait a day or two, and it's like normally it's an hour delay max between texts. And I'm like, okay, what did I do? And I literally started going back through my texts. And I remember saying to my wife, like, I don't understand. I didn't do anything. Like I was like, and I'm looking, I'm like, no, this is helping. And I couldn't figure it out to the point where 2 days later, I sent an email saying, I'm really sorry if I did something wrong, and I mean, just like, I lost my mind thinking I did something. 2 days later, he gets back to me. He's like, dude, I am so sorry for not getting a hold of you. He goes like, it was just as simple as a text away. I had a major family emergency. His mom got hit by a car. She was in a car accident. I just kind of dropped everything. I'm really sorry I didn't text you. So here I am freaking out that like I had commission breath and what did I do wrong? And I've lost a $50,000 deal. And he had an accident in the family.
Yeah.
And you think about it, if that happened to you, I wouldn't, as long as my immediate family would be my main priority, right? Like my family and everything else, I probably wouldn't answer either. Or I'll answer it later and then you forget about it and you do that. But it was like, and then from him connecting with me, within 3 hours, he wired the money, sent me the transaction number, and within 2 days I had the money. And it was like, and then we started and we went, put his whole team through courses. But it was nothing I did. But this up here was like, oh my gosh, I ruined it. I screwed up, right?
Mm.
It's so bad to just get that out of there, man.
Yeah, well, I think you look at something that's like a big one-off, right? Like that's not happening to you to like the 99% of your customers, right? So
Mhm.
it's really important like when we look at Sundays, and I want to talk a little bit about like the first of every month, because for me, I don't track my progress in terms of like prospecting and orders and all that stuff, because agents and then we kind of get like our numbers usually by the fifth or sixth or whatever. So for me, I look at my outputs because those are the things I can control. So one thing,
Mhm.
like for anybody who's new watching out there, pay attention to like your calls, pay attention to your emails, what hit, pay attention to your social posts as well, because at the end of the day, even if you're looking for brand new business, and I've been seeing a lot of posts on LinkedIn, Dan, where it's like it's from actual shippers saying like, man, I cannot, like, my phone rings off the hook, and like, I'm getting 3 times the size of solicits since the market has kind of gone down. And I just remember when Greg Cornett was on here a couple, I think it was last year or the year before, he was just saying, yeah, since COVID, my stuff has gone up more. So when you kind of say that, hey, a shipper's role is like they're wearing 4 or 5 different hats every day, you got to kind of look at your output completely and understand your timelines. Because when I'm looking at my timelines and like the customer is like, okay, well, RFP is gonna come out in September, I'm not gonna wait till September. I'm gonna hit like a touch, like maybe bi-weekly or something like that. Give them a call, just to
Mhm.
figure out how everything's kind of going with them. But understand that it's their timing, not your timing. But when you control the controllables on your end, that's like things like Sundays, right? Like, and I do that for my business and my personal life, Dan. Like I meal prep every Sunday. I make sure that I kind of like go like a nature walk and things like that. And Sundays is my days where I actually leave my phone alone completely. But when you're looking, it's very rare that we get the first of the month on the Monday, which is kind of like the go day. So like I'm really looking forward to what May kind of brings. But I like the idea that you brought up that was like, hey, let me call all my customers, figure out what their vacation timeline is, and not just their timeline, figure out what their teammates timelines are, because if you're dealing with a customer, let's call it a spade, they're not the ones who are going to be tendering new loads or POs or anything like that. It's going to be somebody from their team, the load planner, the ops person there. So
Mhm.
once you kind of involve everybody there, that's where you become a resource to their team and understand that
And
completely.
your
But
hot prospects. Don't forget your
exactly,
hot prospects too.
you
Yep.
you you have
Yep.
to, you
Not just
really have
customers,
to.
hot prospects.
Well, hot
Mhm.
prospects too. Even I would say even mid-warm, like lukewarm ones too,
Yeah.
because you're
Yep.
kind of going from there, like to understand, hey, this person's actually, for me, Dan, like I like to stand out when I reach out to prospects and customers. That's why I like to do a lot of videos. I like to do like certain emails. Like my emails, I was telling somebody this morning, my emails are really like 50 words or less. I do
Mhm.
not write novels. They're not copy and paste. They're just, hey, called just information, call to action, boom, and that's really it. So for me, kind of stepping aside from every other person who's copy and pasting. I know a lot of people right now are using ChatGPT and they're just kind of writing up stuff and just copy and pasting and not putting their own flavor into it. That spray and pray method, right? So for me, who wants to be somebody who stands out, I'm going to do that for my hot prospects, my lukewarm, even sometimes my cold ones. Like it's like I go based on Raving fan, as Lisa's kind of mentioning here. She loves Sundays, but I love to go with companies. I like to, even Sundays when we're doing grocery shopping, Dan, I love to write down some companies, see what they're about, do some research on them, and kind of reach out that way.
Yep. Yeah. Raving fan, I think, is one of the best things besides referrals for business.
Yeah.
Like if you love the product,
Yep.
people are going to listen to you because you're going at it with enthusiasm. You're going at it with energy. You're not just going at it, well, I was wondering how you're presently set up.
Yeah.
And think about it, okay? So, and I know we've said it before, but I think it gets lost in a salesperson, and I think it's something that we need to consistently bring to the forefront of our mind.
It's the easiest sell.
It,
It's really the easiest
well, but
sell. Like,
no. What I'm going with this is, it is raving fan is an easy sell. But what I'm going with this is, if you had 5 to say 15 calls a day that you felt wasted your time, right? How receptive are you to calls?
mhm.
Like, and then this is really, if you listen to Greg when he was on, if you listen to John Brewer, if you listen to every single traffic manager that has stepped out and said something, if you look at all those LinkedIn posts, ask them, out of those 25 calls a day, how many are actual calls that can help you get somewhere? And I'm
Mm.
going to say maybe one, if that zero, because everybody, like, why are you calling a traffic manager? You want to move his freight to make money. Like,
Facts.
think
Yeah.
about that for a second, right? Like, he's not sitting there in a house with no windows and you're trying to sell him windows to stay warm before winter. Like think about it, right? So it's the way you do it is you break that down and you go in with a genuine. The raving fan goes in with, I love your product. I don't care how, I'll come sweep your floors for 2 years. I just want to be involved. Right? As opposed to, hey, I saw you're in Tennessee. I have 4 trucks a day in Tennessee. Are you interested in putting your shit on my trucks? Right? Like, and
Yeah.
I mean, that obviously there's a little bit more grace to it than that, but you get the picture. And all of these traffic managers don't want to answer the phones anymore because so many people waste their time.
Yeah.
So much time is wasted. And if you had 4 times the amount of work to do and 30 times the distractions, a distraction made 3 times is a choice. Remember that. And this is what you're facing as a sales rep. And this is why, Ryan, I said ages ago, when the economy does this, when the freight market does this, the real salespeople win, right? Like during COVID, money was to be made no matter how bad of a salesperson you were.
Yep.
Right? Now, not so much.
No, you're seeing
Not so
layoffs
much.
everywhere. You're seeing layoffs everywhere, and you're seeing people go into business for themselves. And I think, when we're looking at like Raven fans and things like that too, when you're making those 5 to 10, 15 calls, you ask the traffic managers what stands out. You have somebody who actually brings some kind of value to you, right? And ask you questions that you haven't been read before. Like I even have scripts from my first job, right? It's like, okay, how many shipments are you moving weekly? Is it LTL? Is it full truck? Once you get into that jargon, it's basically you're going through a checklist, right? You want to kind of fill your boxes and then kind of have those be, like I said, you really, really got to stand out from. But even though yourself stands out, you got to understand that your service needs to back it up as well, right? Because like
Oh,
you can be one of the best, like talk to anybody. I feel like you and I, we can talk to anybody, but let's say our service is not there, right? Like I don't full transparency. I don't sell LTL because I know that I wouldn't be good at LTL, right? So I kind of look for my different kind of niches. But hey, like I always kind of say, I might not know LTL, but hey, I can put you onto an LTL carrier that we use, and you work with them and kind of build up that regiment there. But coming back to when we look at the month end and your month goals and your output and making sure that you're not going through the motions, kind of reflecting on, okay, well, this kind of connected for me, and understand it's a long process because, a lot of people, they look for like we always kind of talk about like the low hanging fruit. And I'm in that in that group, Dan. If you're a brand new rep, get those small victories, just knowing that, hey, let me get a customer, knowing that they might not be here for like 6 months, but I want to have that self gratification that, hey, I can actually close an account and learn from it as well,
yes.
right? So
Yeah.
when we look at Sundays, when we look at the first of the month and everything like that, and we're going into spring and we're going to the summer in this kind of hard market, Dan, what is kind of like your final, like, give 3 tips to a new sales rep coming into this industry for May specifically?
So one, understand, that was the first one we talked about, understand vacation times and all that kind of stuff. Things move slower in the summer. Number 2, any customers you have to understand their high and low season shipping patterns. You really have to. Any prospects that you have, understand their high and low shipping patterns. Because those 3 things, if you understand when deals are going to be closed, what customers have, like, the waves of shipping patterns, and what prospects have the waves of shipping patterns, you can plan your entire year. And let me explain to you this way. So you're chasing this client real hard and you think you're going to close, not realizing their slowest months are May, June, and July. So in their slowest months, where they have 5 carriers already and they can't even help those 5 carriers, they're going to pick the best carrier of those 5 and use them. They might switch to a new supplier, but most likely, because of the number 1 tip, they're going on vacation. And right, so if you don't understand your entire customer base and your medium to hot prospects, when their peaks and valleys are in shipping, you actually don't have a business.
Yeah.
And I hate to put it like that, but you're transactional. And the reason I say that is because May might be the perfect time for you to get away,
Yeah.
because none of your prospects and none of your customers have anything going on. Or May might be the perfect time for you to add an employee, add a team member in operations, getting prepared for June, July, and August, because 3 of your customers kick in huge. Like if you don't understand the highs and lows of your customers, you don't really have a customer. You have a transactional partner that just gives you freight whenever you think you can get freight. Like Ryan, you said you have produce customers. Those produce customers are not going on vacation till the season's done. Their season's done.
It's blackout. Yeah,
But you
blackout.
know when it starts. They know when it starts. You know when it ends, and they know when it ends. So you're going to ramp up. You're going to plan accordingly. If you have a customer that's ramping up in June, you're going to start calling them every third, fourth day, or at least once a week this month, May, to get right in front of them. So when June comes, they're like, oh, Ryan, that's right. I'm going to call him. But you see, so many people don't. So many people, I guarantee you, we take a poll, 85 to 90% don't fully understand their customer shipping patterns. And when they change, like have the conversation, we're beginning of Q2, right? January, February, March, April. So yeah, halfway through Q2. If you haven't had a conversation with your customer about what's changed for their goals for 2023, I think you're behind. I really do.
Especially
so
even
that's
going
kind of
to
4 tips. Sorry.
Yeah, well, leave it up to you, Dan, to give an additional one, right? But even too, I'll add on to that before we close up the show here. Like even you're looking at for 2023, even start talking about 2024, right? When the market does flip, and look at from that point of view. I think it's like really important to always have those conversations, and I feel like we're giving out this advice here as well, and it kind of contradicts a little bit sometimes, Dan, because we're like, okay, we don't want to take up so many time of the logistics manager or whatever, but know that you go in with intention with your calls, even if your call lasts like 30 minutes to an hour with the customer. You're not having filler in there, knowing that if they want to spend the time with you, they're going to spend the time with you, right? So you ask those pertinent questions and you're going to be making it amazing. So want to thank everybody. It is May 1st, so we're looking forward to everybody crushing out this month, and we're going to come back to you every single day with content. So if you found value in this, please comment,
Ryan, can I just share one more thing before we close off? Because I think you'll find this very important too.
Yep.
You got to understand also with what's happening in the economy and stuff, your customers might cancel orders, right? Like I know somebody that had probably the biggest order on their table for their company, and contracts were signed and everything, and the companies are starting to tighten up the purse strings. And their whole company is going, no, we counted on this. Like this was a signed deal. And they're like, sorry, man. Like it's just the economy's crashing. Like we got to understand, it's not just our customers, it's our customer's customer, right? Yep. Canadian Tire might cancel $4 million in orders because they haven't been selling it. Like, and that's where these conversations that you have about highs and lows, and like you said, Ryan, where you're not, if they like you, they're going to have the conversation with you. And when they start having those conversations with you, like, listen, we had some stuff happen, customers canceled some orders, so we're kind of in limbo right now, but things are happening. When your prospects have those conversations with you, you're in. It's just a matter of time when the actual connection happens and you move from third to fourth to home plate. Sorry, I wanted to
that's fine there. And add to that too as well, like a lot, if you deal with a small supplier, like somebody who only has a little bit of shelf space, if you work in retail, like have that conversation too, because they might be drawn out, it might be too expensive for them. You look at one of those key players that is going to be from there. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll hit the replay again at 2 and 6 p.m. But take care, everybody, and have yourself an amazing